You know what the theme is? Did you hear what she said for this year?
Yes.
Just hunger, right? So you all get one of these fancy T-shirts before you leave. Make sure you get one of these. Orange is kind of the color for World Vision. Orange is a color for service, is what it is. That's why they suggest you wear orange today. It's kind of a funky orange, I think, but just hunger. Pinkish orange, peach. And we put our fancy youth ministry logo on the back. So this is our brand new youth ministry logo. So make sure you get one of these. Just hunger. It comes from Micah 6:8. Someone want to read Micah 6:8 for us? What does Micah 6:8 say? That's the first verse we're going to look up. Old Testament prophet, Micah 6:8. We'll let some people get there. Molly's already there. She's ready to read it for us. I can tell.
Question, where's Micah?
He's one of the minor prophets.
Sorry, want to run the chapter verse Bible one more time?
Micah 6:8. Chapter 6, verse 8. Yeah, okay, Emma, you want to read?
Yeah.
Give us a second, let me make sure a few people are there.
Sorry, it's between I found it.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. He has told you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justice, and to love kindness, and walk humbly with your God.
So what does the Lord command of us? Three things. What are the three things?
Do justice, love kindness, walk humbly with God.
So do justice. What was the second one?
Love kindness.
Love kindness, and walk humbly with your God, right? So that's where they're getting this just hunger from. The idea of just, that idea of just. I think they're trying to do a play on words, right? Is it just, like just as in fair, and just as in right? That's kind of what I think World Vision's trying to get across this weekend. You know, it's just hunger, which it's not means it's not really fair that people are hungry right now, that people are starving in the world, that people don't know where their next meal is coming from, right? Or it's just, and we're trying to do something that's full of justice right now by fasting ourselves and raising all the money that you guys have done, doing all the service projects that we're going to do. We're doing justice. We're doing something that's just. We're doing something that's right? We're doing something that's providing for those kids that are starving around the world. So I think that just thing is a play on words. That's why your shirt's going to say just hunger, right? And it's going to have kind of a double meaning for you. Make sense? You with me? Okay. I think we need to get a different perspective on hunger too. Just like that word just, how they play on that word. I think in our society, in our culture, she kind of mentions it, that we know we can go to the tap and turn it on and get water, right? A lot of people in these other countries, they say the average is 6 kilometers that they have to walk for clean water. Or, you know, we even know right now when we're hungry, while we're fasting, we have a timer on that we know when our next meal's coming. We know that 6:30 tomorrow we're going to eat food, right? So we know those things. In this country, you know where your next meal's coming from. You're not always starving like they are in some other countries. You don't have that perspective, right? Not ever knowing where your next meal's coming from, or not even being able to afford to have that next meal. So your perspective on hunger is really important. So I think it's important that we kind of paint your perspective on what hunger really is. When I was thinking about this, that justice and doing just hunger, you guys fasting to change the way you're looking at hunger around the world. This is going to affect what we do on Sunday morning too, just so you know. So whatever your thoughts are, try and hold them for the next 20 some hours, because it's Sunday morning, Pastor Stroll's gonna ask you, what's your perspective on hunger? So we're gonna try and paint your perspective right now. We're gonna try and change it from probably your perspective maybe right now a little bit selfish, maybe a little inward focus, I'm hungry, or maybe I'm struggling with school, or maybe I'm struggling with a relationship, or maybe I'm struggling with a home life, but you don't have the perspective of starving to death, or you don't have that perspective of really doing justice for someone halfway around the world, right? So I thought I could share a couple stories with you, and the best story I thought of was Luke chapter 13. So this is the next one we're going to read together. Luke 13. So this is in the New Testament, Gospels. Let me see if I can find a page number for y'all. Luke 13, 10 through 13. So just a couple verses. Page 1743, 1743. Luke 13, 10
Page 7.
through 13. So, let's see. Yeah, this is the one. Someone want to read this? 10 through 13, so 3 verses.
Sure.
All right, so what's the title?
A woman with a disabling spirit.
Disabling spirit. Hold that thought. Go ahead.
Now he was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Sabbath, and there was a woman who had had a disabling spirit for 18 years. She was bent over and could not fully straighten herself. When Jesus saw her, he called her over and said to her, "Woman, you are freed from your disability." And he laid his hands on her, and immediately she was made straight, and she glorified God.
So Jesus was speaking in the synagogue, right? And there's this woman there, and she is what? Disabled. How is she disabled specifically? She's got back problems. So what does it say? She's
Bent over.
She's bent over for how long?
18 years.
18 years. Can you imagine that, Simon?
I have barely been alive that long.
Right. I don't know if it's from birth. I don't know if she was 18 years old. I don't know if she developed it throughout maybe scoliosis kind of throughout the years. But can you imagine that perspective? In fact, I would like you guys all to stand up and bend over like this. I'm serious. Everybody stand up and bend over. So everybody bend over.
I can't touch my
Okay. So it says that the woman was bent over for the last 18, keeps bending over. I'm not telling you to stand up. I'll tell you when to stand up. But I have a couple questions for you. What the woman was bent over for 18 years, and like I asked Simon, can you imagine this for 18 years, right? So we only have 20 more hours of this, so maybe, I don't know, 18 years from now, you guys can stand up, but that was a joke. What's your perspective right now? What do you see? A lot of floor. Can you imagine that woman for 18 years? What does she see? A lot of floor. Simon, can you do me a favor? Can you go get me water out of the fridge?
Yeah, sure. I'm on my way.
Yep.
bottom shelf in the drawer.
Is a Gatorade okay? Oh, just kidding. Found it.
It's in the bottom shelf, yeah? You got it?
Got it.
See your toes, yeah? How was the breathing for you?
Not easy.
Not easy?
Not the same as animal crackers.
See?
Yeah.
So I know, like I said before when we first started the family, guys, it's really important that you guys drink. So why don't you guys take a drink right now?
Where did I put that?
Oh, you got a straw. I don't know if that's fair.
Alright.
Oh, you're gonna go get one from the fridge? All right. Good luck to you.
I turned my head to the side.
Yeah, it's right. Or it's just like,
Turn your head.
Yeah,
See,
like-
you guys, I'm glad you guys help each other out there. That's nice. Technique. We're waiting on Ann to get a drink. So.
I got a straw.
Does anything hurt?
My back.
My back.
Wow,
My
it's
legs.
only been like 2 minutes.
Yeah, give or take.
Yeah, same.
It's been like 30 seconds.
Your legs?
You.
Not here.
Your feet fell asleep, alright.
A little bit.
They don't hit
My
me.
thighs are feeling
You're flossing. Oh, I know. And so Jesus saw this woman for 18 years bent over, right? And what does he do?
Heals her.
My back is cracked.
It's breaking.
Let's see what Jesus says real quick. You woman, you are free from your disabilities. You are freed from your disabilities. And he laid his hand on her, and immediately she straightened up. Go ahead, straighten up.
Now it hurts.
So it burns. Did you hurt afterward?
Oh,
Yeah.
go ahead, see. So how's that feel?
Oh, not great.
If she's bent over, how does she sleep?
Bent over.
In fetal position.
Other side, maybe? Imagine her perspective for 18, we're not talking 2 minutes that you guys had to get a drink of water, to eat, to converse with someone. 18 years of that. And the pain in her body that she had, right? This was disabling, it says, right? In scriptures, it was a disabled. And her perspective it was a disability, right? Her perspective, that was all she saw. That was all she knew was this world, right? She understood pain. She understood the ground. She understood how to get along in life. And then, bless you. And Jesus heals her and tells her to straighten up, and she does, right? And she glorifies God is what her response is. Can you imagine that? Put yourself, I've tried to for a few minutes, put yourself in her shoes, right? The next story of healing I want to show you, of a disabling spirit, comes from Luke. We're still in Luke. We're going to be in Luke in the next two stories. In Luke chapter 8. So go back a couple of chapters. Chapter 8, verse 43. This is one of my favorite stories in Scripture. What Jesus does here at the healing is amazing. So Luke chapter 8, beginning with verse 43 through 48. Here Jesus was teaching again, and there was a leader of a centurion, which means he had 100 people underneath him, and his son was very sick. In fact, was going to die soon. And so he sent a servant to go get Jesus. And so he runs and gets Jesus, the servant does, and Jesus is like, okay, I'll go and heal the boy. And so he starts walking towards the centurion's house, and then while he's walking along, the crowd gathers around him, and another miracle happens because of this. So read what happens here. Who wants to read it? 43 through 48. All right, Mama.
And there was a woman who had a discharge of blood for 12 years, and though she had spent all her living on physicians, she could not be healed by anyone. She came up behind him and touched the fringe of his garment, and immediately her discharge of blood ceased. And Jesus said, "Who was it that touched me?" When all denied it, Peter said, "Master, the crowd surround you and are pressing in on you." But Jesus said, "Someone touched me, for I perceive that power has gone out from me." And when the woman saw that she was not hidden, she came trembling, and falling down before him, declared in the presence of all the people why she had touched him, and how she had been immediately healed. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace."
So let's recap the story, right? So like I said, there's a big crowd around him. In fact, his disciples go, "Dude, there's lots of people touching you right now," because he said, "Someone touched me," right? And there's this woman, and okay, I'll tell you, a discharge of blood. Now, for women, you know what that means? That's menstruating, right? That's a discharge of blood, not once a month, that is normal period time, right? For this discharge of blood is ongoing, it says for how long? 12 years. Okay, the last lady has been over for 18 years. This lady, 12 years of a period, okay? For you women, you might have an idea what that's like, all right? It says she went even a step further and said that she spent all of her money, all that she had, on all the physicians. So she went from doctor to doctor to doctor to try and figure out how to get this to stop, right? How to get this discharge of blood to stop. And go a step further even, she is a woman that's in a cloak right now. And how do we know that? Because of the culture of the times. So when you were menstruating, women, you were put out, basically. You were considered unclean in the Jewish community. Anybody that was considered a discharge of blood in any way, a cut, a scrape, or even menstruating, that would mean you are unclean, right? And they would go as far as to, Molly, can you come here for a second? They would go as far as to do this. Even some villages would cast the women out of the village during that time. And even they would go as far as some villages would go like this. Whenever they would walk, whenever a woman would try and walk around while she was unclean, there would be a guy, some of them even had a bell, or it would just yell. It would go either in front of her, behind her, go walk somewhere. Unclean, move aside, unclean, move away, unclean, unclean coming through, unclean, she's unclean. Molly, you want to say that? How'd that make you feel?
Not good.
Can you imagine what that would be like to have someone do that to you? And so she was hiding in the crowd because she didn't want to have that village cast her out, or if that was a type of village that would call her out as far as being unclean. So she was hiding. I know she was hiding under a cloak. And she just thought to herself, if I could just touch just the hem of his garment, right? I don't even need to bother him, because if I do, then the whole crowd will know that I'm unclean, and they'll start mocking me. But I know if I just barely reach out and touch Jesus, he can heal me. And that's what she does, right? And he feels the power go from him, he says. And he stops, and he says, who touched me? And then the disciples, dude, everybody's touching me. He's like, no. Someone really touched me. And immediately when she touched him, what happened? What's that?
It stopped.
Yeah, it stopped. The blood stopped. She knew right away she was healed, right? And then he stopped, the crowd stopped, and he's like, who touched me? And she finally said, well, it was me, right? And you gotta imagine this woman being ashamed and hiding in the midst of the crowd. And even when being healed, I just imagine her kind of cowering, right? She doesn't know what he's going to do or say to her. And then what does Jesus do? This is significant what he does. What does he call her? Daughter. There's only 2 times he calls daughter. This is one of them. And I imagine him, this is why it's so a beautiful scene, like her just like this, cowering, and Jesus grabbing her by the shoulders and lifting her up and restoring her, not just physically, but to the whole village, emotionally, and connected to her family. And he says, daughter. He calls her daughter. That's moving, right, ladies? To be called a daughter by Jesus. That one's a little bit harder to act out, especially for you, Simon. So, we're going to go to the next one, Luke 6. So a couple more chapters before that. Luke 6. Chapter 6, verses 6 through 10. 6 through 10. Someone want to read this part?
I'll read it.
Alright.
A man with a withered hand. On another Sabbath, he entered the synagogue and was teaching, and a man was there whose right hand was withered. And the scribes and the Pharisees watched him to see whether he would heal on the Sabbath, so that they might find a reason to accuse him. But he knew their thoughts, and he said to the man with the withered hand, "Come and stand here." And he rose and stood there. And Jesus said to them, "I ask you, is it lawful on the Sabbath to do good or to do harm, to save life or to destroy it?" And after looking around at them all, he said to him, "Stretch out your hand." And he did so, and his hand was restored.
Okay. Which is your dominant hand? Wrap that around there. You're gonna have to help your partner out. You gotta find your neighbor, wrap that around your dominant hand. This is the best I could come up with besides smashing your hand with a tack hammer.
I mean, that would have been a little more convincing. I'd be down.
Wrap that around your hand, good and tight.
Be fine.
I think I'm gonna need help.
Yeah, that's why you use your neighbor for help. Use your neighbor for help.
How do we do
Hey, I
it?
don't even know how to wrap this.
Yeah, like, what do you mean by wrap around?
I don't know how to swaddle a baby.
I don't know how to do that either. Right?
I'll tell you how we're gonna wrap in a second.
Wait, I saw David Dobrik do this.
All right.
I saw that.
Alright, you got your hand wrapped? There you go.
Oh, cool.
Yes, it's time.
Sick.
Otherwise the skin would come off when it peeled off your duct tape.
I think it's not that bad.
I have
With our hand?
You wanna help?
Look, I have one little
Yeah.
finger.
Now I know it's
I'm
one
gonna
hand.
duct tape your hand shut. So basically just the handkerchiefs there to protect your hand from the duct tape. So however you want to wrap it up, it doesn't really matter. Make sure this is your dominant hand, this is the one you write with.
Yeah,
I can take this off though.
What's that?
I can take this off. Well, wouldn't he have been left-handed? If his right hand was over
Sure,
there.
right.
You don't know if he was left-handed.
True. But if he was unable to use his right
You
hand.
don't know if he could have wrote at all.
He might have
He might not have written.
Might not have
We're
written.
gonna do that.
No
Group,
risk.
actually, can, so.
No pressure.
I feel like tear.
Ooh. Trying to cheat, are you, Jerry? You're trying to cheat, aren't you? Oh, is it the skin? Can I get the skin?
I got it.
Is anybody left-handed?
You good?
Great.
The thing I'll take from you guys.
I'm okay.
My niece is left, just not with right.
They'll be furry, and that one
This
day
didn't
she
work
does
out.
like this.
Yeah.
Ooh, can I?
Yeah. Go ahead.
My hand's purple, yay!
It's been a while since you've had to use your left hand, but
Oh no, it's not my
you
skin.
practice
Oh,
Ah.
It seems like a weapon right here.
It
you
does.
got pretty darn good at
I feel like you're just like.
Listen,
I'll
just
turn away.
Huh?
Why did you wrap your hand?
I don't know.
broke my
I
right
kind of
hand
just
one
winged
time.
it.
I'm trying to wing
I
it.
take
It's kind
finals
of
with
working
my
out.
left
I'll
hand.
just do this.
How would that go?
Oh,
Yeah,
terrible.
good enough, I think.
College?
You hold it there, Eric will duct tape it and it'll hold itself.
I've never taken it off again.
Yeah.
Cool, good
Thankfully,
stuff.
it was mostly just bubbling stuff in, but I
Okay,
still
yeah.
really.
Did even leave this out like some sort of like,
those
disability
unused
agreement?
muscles. How do we function though?
Yeah.
Oh, I can't
Mine's
drive
like
tomorrow.
right in my
Sorry
name.
guys, I got
So
a
bad.
an injury.
Yeah, I can't drive back,
Did
so.
you
Yeah.
take the test one?
Except you get points.
I can't-
Sorry,
Yeah.
Coach, I can't
I
go
am
to
adept in
SECs
driving.
tomorrow. My hand doesn't work.
Uh-oh.
I do like the
Sorry.
I had my mom do most of it because I couldn't.
Oh yeah, the
do
boys
it.
have SECs.
So yeah, try, take it, this is your dominant hand, so take a drink.
Don't worry about it.
It's not too bad.
So you gotta take the top off, right?
Right.
Without,
Oh, without using it? Oh, hold on, my bad.
it's a withered hand, you don't really have
Well, yeah,
control
you
of
can
it,
do
so
that.
how would you take your
Can I
top
balance
off?
it on my wrist?
You could do that, yeah.
handy tonight.
Yeah.
Alright,
I feel like Tim
Is
Gunn.
it? It's
this will be better writing style than my last
Alright.
one.
Which verse are we looking at?
Why don't you, if you have a piece of paper and a pencil, go ahead and write something down.
I don't have writing.
Don't worry about it.
I know work.
Hang on, I'll help you.
I'm gonna make a tablet out of it.
All right, just hunger on your piece of paper for me.
That's what we have to write.
Write just hunger.
Hey, Zach, I
Yeah,
a spot on your paper.
Firmly grasp it in your hands.
You gonna try it?
Firmly grasp it.
He's writing just hunger
Yeah,
in his mouth.
He's going for it.
Then you gotta go jellyfishing with it.
Pretty good.
Alright.
You're gonna try and use your
If
withered
my
hand.
hand is withered, how is okay to stab it?
I mean, it looks
Like, it's withered like nerve damage.
Well, it doesn't really, not a lot of details on that,
You
sir.
probably couldn't feel your hand.
Yeah, that looks pretty good.
I can't even hold the pencil.
Just hunger.
It looks
Cool,
like
cool.
my regular hand.
Wait, are we using
Awesome.
them?
Try your other
I
hand.
can hit the solder.
Yeah, I remember that.
Or
I
if,
don't know. They look like.
I left-handed it.
it depends on how much.
Right, right.
I can read it, it's legible.
Right,
But it looks
and
like a
then
boy's
just
handwriting, and I'm gonna have pretty cool
hunger.
handwriting.
Oh my goodness.
I'm writing my head backwards.
Man, I feel like a doctor.
It's mine.
Well, I'm gonna have my name.
Gotta get my handwriting.
Still, horror movie fun, that's awesome.
Yeah, it looks like kind of cool.
I wonder what's better, my mouth or my left
Literally,
hand?
mine looks like my younger brother's handwriting. I'm like, oh. this
So,
is different.
So,
Missy. So the top one is mine, and the bottom one is Zane's.
Scary movie. When scary
alright, so what's your perspective now?
Two
I could have
thumbs up. I mean,
You just stick a pen in your hand?
eventually your handwriting will get
What's that?
Eventually your handwriting will
Like,
get
actually got
better.
hers.
The other one is your
Eventually your handwriting will get better.
Your other hand?
Punch something
What
as
if
hard
I
as
do
you
it
can.
like this?
Well, you don't have use of one hand, right? It says in the scriptures he's got a withered hand. Imagine that, having just one hand. You don't really have much use of that other one. You have to figure out how to get through life, figure out how to write,
You probably couldn't work.
or figure out how to take a drink of water, feed yourself, figure out how to do a lot of different things,
Kind of drives.
you know.
I use my wrists anyways when I
I'd
drive.
have to go to like say.
I drive my elbows anyways, so like.
I bet you that hard.
No, a question. So like a lot of their jobs are very laborious, so you probably won't be able to work very well without two hands.
Right,
Probably would have been cast out.
right.
Yeah. Like he's Jake.
Right.
Can't have him.
So there's like, yeah, there are a lot of people who were cast out for disabilities, right? So this is his disability. We've had a disability of being bent over. We've had a disability of the discharge of blood. And we've had this disability of withered hand. And then what does Jesus say?
You're cute.
He needs
Stretch out your hand.
He says,
He just goes.
Stretch out your hand.
Jesus said to them,
I ask you,
well,
is
yeah,
it lawful on the Sabbath to do good or do harm, to save life or destroy it?
right. Is it lawful to do good or to do harm? Do you get that question? Not just on the Sabbath. Is it lawful? Is it just to do good or to do harm? Is it fair? Is it just? Is it lawful to do good or to do harm? And so he said, just stretch out your hand so you guys can take off your club if you want to now.
So it's a little bit of circulation.
I want to keep it.
I know. I like it.